I'm Mark Correll, Chair of the Department of History at Spring Arbor University. This video is meant to help you succeed in your introductory college history course. Episode 3: Culture versus Personality. Most American college students attend college in their late teens and early 20s. This is a time of remarkable development socially and mentally. Some of these transformations are physical as well. In modern humans, the development of the prefrontal cortex won't finish until the mid-20s. The prefrontal cortex is where much of the ability to assess moral responsibility lies. This means that an academically mediocre college graduate can understand greater moral subtlety than even a highly gifted high schooler. This manifests itself in the way we teach history as well. The ability to encounter murky uncertainty is difficult for adolescents to understand. So curricula are then focused on biographic portraits at the high school level. High school curricula have come a long way from the worst excesses of great man history of earlier generations, but it still distorts the historical picture by making personality the most important driving factor in history. Unfortunately, the simplicity of personality history plays an oversized role in our news media and celebrity culture. Even in the world of marketing, it's simple enough to say this commercial trend started because this influential person endorsed it. But even this doesn't explain the very real function of society's love-hate relationship with celebrity and nuanced use of consumer goods as personality and identity markers. You don't like being defined by the major figures you voted for or follow on social media, but you do pay careful attention to how you appear to others around. This exact thing happens in historical studies as well. Poland was always the difficult-to-control country of the Soviet satellites. They always knew how far they could push the Soviet Union to deviate from the party line without becoming so belligerent that the Soviets felt justified to step in militarily. This began all the way back in 1956 after the death of Stalin. Poland began to stop the process of land collectivization that had effectively ended the independent peasantry in most of the Eastern Bloc countries. In 1980, the Eastern Bloc was suffering from economic catastrophe brought on by the OPEC oil crisis and declining food production in Eastern Europe. A union formed of dock workers at the port of Gdansk, pushing for higher pay and better treatment. Unions like this are commonplace in the West, and strikes happen regularly, so the West really didn't pay that much attention. The leadership of the strike was imprisoned, but some important relief was given to the workers. Still to this day, you probably haven't heard of Solidarity. This was the beginning of the end of communism in Europe. Now, some Polish expatriates like Leszek Kolakowski were telling Americans this was a big deal. But in America, we differentiate politics and economics. Marxism, though, is fundamentally a union of these two. Remember that communism is a government meant to be on behalf of the workers of a state. So the United States kept looking for political unrest that would mark the end of communism. And much of the United States' foreign activities were aimed at fomenting political uprising. However, a political uprising doesn't do anything other than say, "You're not representing me," which is deadly damaging in a democracy, but not in an authoritarian government. An economic uprising by workers against the worker state proclaims, "You're not legitimate." There is no need for unions in a communist country. In 1989, after limited democratization reforms in the Soviet Union, Solidarity once again demanded the attention of the Polish government. They asked to be a recognized political party. They were, after all, representatives of workers. They were allowed to compete for limited seats in the Polish parliament, the Sejm. They won nearly every seat they were allowed to compete for in the more important lower house, and they won 99 out of 100 seats in the upper house. A labor union exposed the fraud of the worker state. High school discussion tends to focus much more around political events and personalities. Lech Walesa, the head of Solidarity, is in occasional textbooks. Far more likely, you'll find some discussion of the Soviet premier, Mikhail Gorbachev. Gorbachev was important in the ending of communism in Poland, as he did not send the Soviet military after Solidarity's resounding victory. However, this was largely because the military did not have the resources remaining after a long and disastrous war in Afghanistan and failing economic infrastructure. Where we focus on personality, Gorbachev is seen as a hero. But most Americans were surprised when in the 1996 Russian national election, Gorbachev, running as a Social Democrat, only received 0.5% of the vote, ending in 7th place. Clearly, the Russian people didn't see Gorbachev's personality as the reason for the end of communism in the Soviet Union. The same happened with Lech Walesa, the spokesperson for Solidarity, who became president of Poland and received the Nobel Peace Prize. While still an important figure in Polish politics, his party was beaten in his re-election, and Solidarity returned to being a labor union. The end of communism didn't happen because of a few charismatic leaders or even because of dramatic turning points like the fall of the Berlin Wall. It happened because of a long, slow force of collective action against a system that treated its citizenry unjustly. So understand the next time you see a political figure trumpeting his own influence and power, or even when people appeal to a single great figure in human history, that this person was not solely responsible for change, even when they became the face of it. They were the right person at the right time to become a representative of their movement. This doesn't diminish that person's personhood or agency. If anything, it raises it, and it shows the collective action is oftentimes more powerful than the individual personalities that we tend to focus on.